welcome to another episode of Bite-Sized Strategic Portfolio Management. This episode is about everyone hating time tracking. Most people recognize why it's important. It's a valuable input to know what happened and to know when it happened. But I don't like to do it, you don't like to do it. The key value propositions we have in the Tempo solution are around the ease with which we allow time to be tracked and the overhead it removes from people. This way, individual contributors can spend more time working on building products, setting up infrastructure, doing the job that they enjoy doing, and less time just talking about it and having that overhead configuring time tracking. We're primarily going to talk about timesheets in this session, but for the larger SPM solution, keep in mind that time is an input. Tracking time for the sake of tracking time doesn't help anybody, but tracking time for the sake of making decisions does. First, we'll talk about how we get good information, because with anything, garbage in, garbage out, we need to know that what we're doing is accurately logged. There are several ways we do that to enable people to get accurate logging, again, without having a lot of overhead. The example you see in the image here, we have some work that's been planned inside of Planner, and then the person is just confirming the work that they've done aligned with that. We've also got calendar integrations in place here, so if somebody has an issue key inside of a meeting on their calendar and it can log there, they can either log those items individually or they can log all activities and do it all at once and just have a quick review at the end of the week. We've also got integrations with code management platforms, so we can have suggested time logs for people. And again, all of this is driven around minimizing the amount of time people take and require in order to track their time. Going a step beyond these enablements that we have inside of timesheets, we also have Project Sage that's in the works. And as of the time of this recording, it's in the early access program. So we're taking on a few customers to beta test it, and the goal is for it to go GA around the end of Q2 of 2024. That'll go even further by allowing suggested time logs to not just be suggested, but to actually be logged in the background for people without any human interaction necessary. There's immense value there for getting directional accuracy and percentages of work being done. Organizations will be able to see whether their teams are working on the initiatives that were intended to be worked on based on their strategic roadmap. So this goes back to the word alignment that you heard in some other sessions here. It's not a magic word, it just means something important. Alignment means here's what we want to do, here's how we know it needs to happen, and here's how we know that it is happening. So that alignment is really accomplished by having appropriate planning, having appropriate time logging, and knowing how that contributes to the percentages that should be matching our intended outputs. I mentioned earlier, there's no point in tracking time unless you're going to do something with it. So the outputs are the reports that we've got. So we're going to talk a little bit about custom charts here. So where we're talking about time tracking, where the value is, we talk a little bit about timesheets, a little bit about Planner, a little bit about custom charts, a little bit about Project Sage. So we've got some reports built in, so you can run your plan versus actual reports to get an idea of how your timing was spent based on what you thought you need to do. You could see what time was done by various work attributes. So in our example here, we could see time that was spent on individual work, time spent on meetings. You could also break that down further into specific meeting types and allow organizations to get insights into what their team is spending too much time on. So a couple of takeaways and examples here are maybe they're spending too much time in one-on-one meetings, maybe too much time in agile ceremonies, maybe too much time working on bugs. And all of those things allow you to make some decisions based on that. So some example decisions are, if it's too many meetings, you can cut down on them and see if it improves things. If they're working on the wrong initiatives, you can realign the work. If they're working on canceled initiatives, they can realign the work. So you can see through the results of the time people are logging whether or not it's contributing to something that needs to actually take place. It's especially true if you have any level of waterfall effort taking place, or even in a scaled agile environment. Later on in a PI, you may have teams working on something that was deemed unnecessary, but the work was already scheduled, so they were still doing it because nobody told them they needed to stop. If teams are spending a lot of time working on bugs and not on stories, maybe they need to have a tech debt initiative to make some improvements to clean things up. And I lied earlier when I listed the products we're going to talk about because we're going to add Cost Tracker into the mix. The time that's spent is the input for Cost Tracker. So again, knowing what time was spent on something will let organizations know how on track they are with their budget, how much it's costing, if they need to forecast any changes for the project or for future projects. If you want to see more on that topic, you can look at our session on following the money and how the time tracking is an input for Cost Tracker.